I found a sample study budget template online, and when I looked at this template, I immediately wanted to find out what was driving the costs for this patient. So let me orient you to how a budget template works. I'm going to do a couple things to make this more visible. Right away, I'm going to move the margins so that you can actually see not just the whole sheet, but we'll zoom in. We'll go to 100%. Now we're talking. Okay, so UCLA David Geffen School of Medicine, they provided this budget template for the company. It was super funny. We're Big Pharma Incorporated. Okay, so this is a typical study. It's got 10 visits plus a possible early study discontinuation visit and an unscheduled visit. That's across the top. Now, down the side, we've got in column one all the different procedures that are part of this study protocol. So with any procedure, you have personnel costs, the procedure costs itself. You can see that unit costs are here in red and they go across. And we also have some local lab costs, some central lab costs, and study drug related costs. When you go to the bottom of this budget, you have all the direct costs added up. I know that this cost right here, $500, is a sum of F18 to F52. So basically what that's telling me is it's everything for visit 3 for a procedure cost all the way down the line. Boom, 500 bucks. Every visit in this study has indirect costs. These are overhead costs. This study, they've decided that 26% is their standard that they will charge for industry-supported clinical trials. Overhead costs are things like administration, just general cost of doing business things. 26% seems a little high, but it's UCLA and you got to pay a lot to go there. So that's what they like to charge: procedure costs, overhead costs, indirect costs, and then you get a total cost per patient here on row 55. We can see every visit has a cost added here at the bottom, and you can actually see the totals here in 55. Okay, now what is the whole subject cost? It's right here. They've added it up, $18,782. They got that by summing D55 to N55. So D55 is the cost of visit 1 all the way over to, boom, N55 is the early term visit or the end of treatment visit, whichever one comes first. So typically a patient on this study is about $20,000, right? $18,000. So your boss comes to you and says, why is this such an expensive protocol? What is killing us at UCLA? Why are we spending so much money? Well, here's how you figure it out. You might look through all the numbers, try to find some that poke out. Oh, here's one, 256. That's kind of expensive. Let's see. That's not a very efficient way to do it, and certainly not very systematic. So another way we could do it is we could apply a filter to each of the visits and find out maybe if there's any expensive things in there. So here's a filter. Display only the items that are in the column below. Oh, I can look, see here's a $5 cost. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's the total cost. This is really confusing. I'm having a really hard time figuring out what the most expensive costs are. So filters don't really seem to be the way to do it. So let me go ahead and zoom back out for you guys. What we're going to do is set this just to 60%. I'm going to show you how I use conditional formatting to answer this question for my boss. I'm going to select the range of values for every visit. As you can see, I didn't go all the way down to the total cost. I'm just looking for individual unit costs for procedures across time. And I'm going to use conditional formatting. So you can find conditional formatting in your ribbon all the way over under this conditional formatting icon. We can do a number of different types of conditional formatting. So right away, I'm going to show you how to isolate the most expensive items in this budget grid. We're going to find the top 10 items. Boom. We don't have to edit anything. We're just going to hit OK. Now, if we didn't want 10, if we want to see the top 2 items, we could do that. Or you could do the top 25%. What's driving the cost. A couple different options here. We're only going to format the items that match this criteria. The default is this pink. You can also change it. I am happy with the pink. We're just going to go with it. Top 25%. Which items are driving the cost? Actually, let's go for top 10. And okay, right away, I can see some items lighting up. Do you see these are now pink? And what's really cool is as you change them, they won't match the format anymore. So I'm going to go Command Z, Control Z. It's a way to undo your change. So I'm going to zoom in so we can talk about what's driving up the cost in this budget. And I just want to show you how I was able to use the conditional formatting to figure it out really quickly. Study coordinator expenses are kind of expensive at screening. I also noticed that study coordinator expenses were expensive at an unscheduled visit. Why? It's because any kind of visit that has a complete physical exam seems to be driving up cost in this budget. Look at that. Comprehensive physical exam is a lot of money. So one way to address this would be to do a symptom directed physical exam. It just depends on what your protocol requires, or maybe you really have to pay. And the reason a physical exam costs so much is usually because you have the evaluation of the actual physician coming in, and then maybe management of any symptoms that they see during the exam. I noticed one other cost that's kind of expensive in this study. It really stands out for me that the triplicate ECG with interpretation is crazy expensive. Maybe because they're bringing in a cardiologist, and for sure because they're doing a triplicate. So if you can get away without doing a triplicate in the study, that would save you some money. But basically, you're paying almost 3 times the amount of a normal ECG because you're doing it in 3 part. So this is only done at 2 visits. I assume it's kind of an important endpoint for our study because it's cardiovascular. But just so you know, the unit cost is really expensive for that triplicate EKG. So that's a quick way to find out what's driving up costs in our budget, and we were able to use conditional formatting. I'm going to Command Z a couple times, set this back. It's now no more formatting. If I wanted to clear the formatting, another way I could do it is go in here and clear rules from the entire sheet or the selected cells. But let's go ahead and do some color scales. So this is another type of conditional formatting. I find it really helpful just to apply, red, yellow, green. So we'll go here, and it really just lights it up like a Christmas tree. You can see what we're saving money on and what we're spending the big bucks on. Red is expensive, green is cheaper. So those are two types of conditional formatting that can really make your grid a lot easier to understand. And when it comes to negotiating your study budgets, don't really sweat the small stuff, right? These things that are yellow, who cares? It's really the big ticket items that you want to try to save some money on because they're really driving costs down below. So I hope this helps. You've learned two different types of conditional formatting. Again, we just selected the range and then we applied a highlight rule. For us, we used the top 10 items. And we also tried color scales. So play around with those, have fun, and I will be happy to show you some of the other conditional formattings in a different data sheet.